Do you struggle with depression, even just a little bit? Or do you find that, maybe you're just chronically unhappy? Maybe you've never really defined that you're depressed in some way. I know for me, I struggled with depression off and on since I was really little. And I honestly never admitted to myself until I was sort of out of depression that I actually had been depressed. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're struggling with a lot of symptoms that you've researched it, you've Googled it online, and it shows that, yep, I have a lot of symptoms of depression, but I don't really want to admit to myself that I'm depressed. I've been there. I will say that, that I'm doing this video in January, and in North America, in Canada in particular, this is probably one of the worst times for depression to flare for a lot of people. If you already struggle with depression, then this is when it actually gets worse, because we've been through several months of hardly any sunshine, the weather is crappy, life force is being depleted, and now we've just gone through the holidays, which we rally ourselves to, go out and be social and to participate in family events and social events. And then there's this drop in energy right after the new year where, we try to keep up with the new year. We try to decide, okay, I'm going to get better this year. I'm going to do greater things for myself. But then we can't. The energy is just too dense, too heavy, and we sink even further into a state of lethargy and unhappiness and unworthiness and depression and so on. If this is you, then stick around, because I'm going to share with you my own personal and professional experience with dealing with depression and some great tips and suggestions on how you can maybe pull yourself up a little bit if you are struggling right now, and maybe bigger tools to take, along the road that will help you to pull yourself out of it in a greater way for years to come. Hi, I'm Andrea Coulter, and welcome back to my channel, the best place to be to discover exactly how your thoughts and your emotions are affecting your whole health. And of course, not just your health, but your life as well. So one of the things I've really discovered about depression in my own journey is that it really is a hydra-headed monster. There is no one particular thing that triggers depression in everyone. And in fact, everyone's depression is multi-layered. There is so many different reasons why one person is struggling from depression and why this person is struggling. They're all different layers on not just a mental, emotional level, but also on a physical level as well. As you know, if you've been following my videos, how this all is a vicious circle, how it supports and feeds itself, either in a positive way or in a negative way. Because even though we're all human, we all have different levels of health on every level. We are all unique, just like snowflakes. We are all unique little snowflakes with our own soul spiritual evolution, with our own physical, genetic DNA, RNA compositions that when subjected to certain life experiences and perspectives and traumas and starts to pile up, everybody's breaking point is a little bit different. And so I'll share with you my breaking point and how I worked through it. And maybe it'll give you some insights and some tips into how to recognize where you're at and some ideas to help you break free. So whenever I was experiencing depression, whether I was admitting it or not, generally, now that I look back on it, it went in a certain pattern. And maybe you connect with this. Again, maybe not. Yours might unfold in a completely different way. But for me, oftentimes it started with obviously a lot of stress and anxiety and worry and fretting and, really taking a toll on my mental emotional well-being. Something would trigger me to start to get very anxious and worried about just life in general, or a certain circumstance that I felt was out of my control and I couldn't do anything about it. And that would just set me off. And then I would become an insomniac. So generally for me, it starts with anxiety, stress, fretting, worrying, and then not sleeping at all, not getting any sleep because I can't get my mind to stop all the stress and worry. And then I lose my appetite because, of course, all my energy is going to my head and my stressing and worrying. So it would go like that for a while, and then that would start to shut down because I couldn't keep that up. You can't sustain a high negative energy state in one area for very long. It's a survival mechanism. So then what happens is it starts to sink further in. It's where your brain goes foggy, you can't function, you don't want to function. I often would hide. I remember my teenagers, I wouldn't come out of my room until everybody had left the house because I didn't want to face or talk to anybody else. I didn't want people to ask me what was wrong because that would just set me off even further. So I would hide. I was functioning, but just barely. And I kind of got over the not sleeping, and then I would just completely shut down and want to cry and be alone and sleep all day. Everyone's experience with depression, no matter what level of depression you have, is completely different. It is their own experience. And so it's important to not really judge yourself based on my story or your friend's story or what you read online. Yes, there are very telltale signs and symptoms that you're depressed, but honestly, if you're avoiding life and you feel completely unhappy and lethargic and all of those are definitely signs of depression. Even if you're not admitting to yourself that you're depressed, on some level you are depressed. Now, of course, serious depression where, you're looking for the gun and you just want to end it all, obviously, you wouldn't be watching this video if you were at that stage. And if you are at that stage, you should go to a doctor or a clinic and get help immediately. Absolutely. However, for myself, I was always that kind of up and down, low grade. I could function, but by dint of a lot of effort, get through the day and pretend in front of everybody else that I was okay and then go home and, lose my shit basically. And then unfold and unravel. And then try to rally myself again. And it wasn't until I started going through my own healing journey because I got so sick with an autoimmune issue, which I'll go into in another story and how that all correlates. But for today, this is just about depression on some level. So for me, as I worked through my own healing journey to get my health back on track, and I started changing my diet and nutrition, and I'll go into tips a little bit later in the video. But it wasn't until I started taking more control of, in a healthy way, my life, looking at my mental, emotional well-being and my physical well-being and going through sequential therapy that I really recognized the one key emotional state that was triggering my depression. And this is actually the biggest emotional key for all of depression. So depression is, we often look at depression as, woe is me, sad, and life sucks, and I'm no good, and this is stupid, and I'm never going to get anywhere, and this whole horrible self-talk that we do to ourselves is due to really deep, low self-worth issues to begin with, and number two, it's our compression of our own soul spiritual life, of ourself. We compress ourselves so much that we become depressed. But initially, it's a lot of deep-seated anger. And I know this sounds really odd. Like I said, most of us look at depression as it's grief, it's sadness, but it's not. Yes, when it's manifesting, that's what you see on the surface. However, the seed of it is truly anger. And I'm going to explain that a little bit further. Being a physical human being in this earth and having a soul spiritual, a unique experience that's just yours, we have a lot of trauma that we have to go through. We have a lot of trials and tribulations, and the majority of people, our life is not the leave it to beaver kind of life. It's just not. And if yours is, kudos to you. However, I know growing up, I grew up in a household with, alcoholism and verbal abuse, some physical abuse. There was always some kind of stress and chaos going on in the household. And those moments when things seemed like they were going good, there was always that feeling in the back of your soul that when is the boot gonna drop? It's not going to stay this good. There's always something bad coming up. It's this whole horrible feeling of walking on pins and needles all the time. And again, that was my experience. I don't know what anybody else goes through, but we have life struggles. Life is not a walk in the park every day. We have traumas we go through. We have experiences and perceptions and difficulties, and it's how we take them and how we work with them and how they impinge upon us on not just a mental emotional level but a physical level, that it starts to wear us down and it breaks us up and it makes us feel angry and frustrated and resentful and rageful about the hardships in life. And it's this anger and rage and frustration which we should honestly be feeling when these things are happening so that we can work through them in a self-positive way, but we don't. And again, I don't know about you, but I was taught to be the good girl, do the right thing, be kind, be loving, don't be angry, help out, in order to be loved and to be liked, we try to be all these things that maybe we're not really always feeling. So if you have the same experience, share with me. I would like to hear how you struggled through this. But for me, it was the fact that I denied really how I was feeling and how I was thinking and seeing things in life because I was sort of being told to do it this way. As well as, being told from the time you were born that you're stupid, you're no good, you're worthless, you're not going to go anywhere. Why do you even try? All of this negativity and suppressive mental and emotional stuff wears us down. And what happens is we don't honor the anger and the frustration and rally ourselves. At least I didn't. I went the opposite way and I suppressed it all. I packed it all in and stored it all up and just pretended it wasn't there and just get through life to the best of my ability, right? But honestly, if we can start to recognize that we do have anger and we should have anger about all of this suppression and depression and compression of our soul spiritual growth, that's what's going to rally you to break free. So it's interesting because it took me a really long time, even with several practitioners, to recognize that I was angry. I was in so much denial that every time they would mention that, oh, when you're doing that, that's because you're actually really angry. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just really sad. Life sucks. But it finally, with enough work and the right remedies and the right soul spiritual exercises, I actually finally the anger started to kind of bubble up and I started to become more conscious of it. Because I had suppressed it so deeply and heavily that, and maybe this is you, you're like, I'm not an angry person at all. I really don't feel angry. I don't. But I was. And it wasn't until I started to finally honor it and was able to actually express it in the right way, not harming another person with it, but bringing it out and expressing it and releasing it properly, made such a huge difference. It lightened my soul and spiritual energy, my life force. It made me feel lighter, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. So remember, you can't just fix negative thoughts with more thoughts. You can't just keep saying positive thoughts over here, hoping that it'll null and void the negative that's going on over here. It's actually not how it works. So you really need to be able to work through all of the layers of trauma that have triggered this and keeps triggering this so that you can actually fully shift it out. It's really the emotional work that helps the mental capacity to free itself from that crazy self-talk, because the brain and the beliefs can just keep doing their own thing, but it's really how you feel about yourself that makes the ultimate difference. So I'm going to go through some of my favorite tips and suggestions. I have a joy kit that I created, which has all my remedies that I use specifically to help people lift themselves out of depression, as well as lots of tools and tips and so on. I'll share a link below for that kit. However, I'm going to share with you some of my favorite tips and tools that maybe will give you a good starting point to help you break free of that. Now remember, I want you to hold on to the fact that you may not feel any anger and you may feel just super sadness and not be able to rally your life force right now. But if you start doing some of these and implementing some of these steps and you feel some anger bubble up, want you to honor that, okay? Because you can't be depressed and angry at the same time. They're two polar opposite energies. And so if you can rally some anger, then the depression will subside. But let's go through some tips. So my first tip is honor and recognize that you are depressed, that you are depressed on some level and in some way. Again, I denied this one for many, 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 many years. I guess I just didn't want to put that stigma on myself, but it's okay. And I think, at least in society, even though mental illness is on the rise, unfortunately, we are at least honoring and recognizing our mental illness in a way that we never have before. Certainly not in the 80s and 90s when I was struggling with it. However, you want to at least accept it and honor it. I know that sounds crazy, but it's a good first step, because just recognizing it and bringing it up to consciousness will allow you to feel a little less stuck in it. Number 2 is to start doing some things that will help bring a little more energy to your physical body. Because again, if you feel a little bit better physically, you're going to feel a little bit better mentally, emotionally. So a couple of tools that I really recommend, especially if you're struggling with depression, is obviously upping your vitamin D3, K2. If you've never taken vitamin D and you're struggling with depression, then absolutely add vitamin D. You can take anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 units a day. I know some people recommend 10,000 initially, maybe for their first week, to kind of really get it into your system if you've never taken vitamin D. But if you're kind of taking vitamin D, but you're still feeling a little depressed, then up it by another 1,000 to 2,000 units a day to see if that helps. As well as super green supplements. So that super green nutrients are really dense in phytonutrients and orgone life energies. Simplest way for me is I get like a green powder mix, and I just put it in some water and I shake it all up and I drink it every day. Just as a way to give your cells some extra vital nutrients. Because here's the thing, when you're struggling with depression and you feel shitty, you don't want to take care of yourself. You don't really give a shit about anything. So you just, meh. I get it, I do. However, another important step in rallying yourself is to try to do something to make yourself feel a little bit better. And even just on a physical level, is to get better nutrients into your body, just a little bit. And the simplest way, especially if you have no hunger, because that was always me, I didn't want to eat when I was depressed, but making yourself drink even 8 ounces of some green supplement is going to slowly start to build up some cellular life energy and make you feel better. So number 3 is actually to get a sun lamp. So if you're in like North America right now where it's gray all the time, then get one of those sun lamps. They're not that expensive. You can sit under it for 20 to 30 minutes a day. Will make a huge difference in how you feel. Again, it helps you to get that D vitamin going, helps you to feel better. I don't know about you, but I know I don't really struggle with depression anymore, but I do start to feel a little when it's gray for so freaking long. How can you be happy when there's no sunshine? The sun makes us feel so much better. That little bit of sunshine that comes out some days in the middle of winter, I will like run out and like, oh my God, I feel, my heart feels so much lighter just being in the sun. So use a sun lamp if you can't get into the sun, or go do tanning beds, whatever makes you feel a little bit happier and a little bit lighter. And again, if the weather's shitty, you're not really getting up and you're not going out. Now, I get it. When you're really depressed, I just want to crawl under the covers and not go anywhere or do anything. You know, you just want to avoid life. I get it. However, getting up, getting dressed, and rallying yourself and going outside, even if it is a shitty day, go for a walk. Just a little one, and try to make it as brisk as possible. Moving mobilizes the lymphatic system, which gets energy moving in your body, which actually makes you feel a little bit better. I said this to my daughter the other day because she was complaining about being back at university, but she wasn't really going anywhere because the weather was shitty and she had to study. She'd been sitting on her bed and studying and not going anywhere, and she was feeling super tired and just didn't have any energy. I said, go for a walk. Just getting out and mobilizing your body actually for that time should make you feel a little bit better. So again, tiny little steps to just, okay, it's not so bad. And then when you're out there, try to find things that make you smile. So smiling, even if you're faking it, actually triggers endorphins. So it triggers those feel-good energy chemicals in your body. So even if you're faking it, you will feel slightly better. So don't look like the crazy joker, but make yourself smile, or find something in life that makes you smile. So for me, when I'm feeling pretty shitty and I'm stuck in the house or whatever, and I'm just kind of, I like to watch the little birdies at my bird feeder. And I like to watch the antics of the squirrels trying to get on my bird feeder. In a way, they kind of make me smile. It reminds me of the simplicity of life and how, you know what, they're going about their day just to the best of their ability and enjoying it no matter what. Even if it's a crappy day out, they seem happy and chipper. And it reminds me to just, not feel like life is so heavy. Remind yourself that this will pass. It will. And you have the ability and the willpower to be able to move yourself past this. So another step that I would like to recommend is to ask for help, to reach out and ask a friend for help. You know, if you don't really have any close confidants or friends, then you know what? Privately message me. I'm here to help you. I really am. And last but not least, recognize the subtle shifts. Pay attention to how you are feeling. Put a little bit of, conscious effort into making myself smile. I don't really feel like smiling, but actually I don't really feel that bad now. Okay, I mean, life still kind of sucks, but so these little tiny steps of do a little more positive self-talk. Find things that bring levity to your heart. Make yourself feel a little bit better, even if just in the moment, and hold on to that. Okay? So hopefully some of these tips give you a good just starting point to get yourself moving forward and higher and upward towards the light. Depression can be a very vicious circle. And once we're in it, it can be really, really difficult to get out on your own. And I also know that when you're in that vicious circle, you actually don't want to reach out for help. But I will highly, highly recommend you do. And hopefully just watching this video has given you a little bit of inspiration to try to reach out for help and or at least do some of the tips that I've suggested. And remember, if you'd like some greater tools, I have, as I said, a Joy Kit, which I'll put a link below, or you can go to my website and pick it up. It's not really expensive. It is chock full of my 35 years of knowledge with dealing with my depression and all of the different ideas, the nutraceuticals and essential oils and the very specific remedies that I've used to help shift and get out of this state so that you can move on and up. The more you pull yourself out of it, the more you recognize it when it's starting to sink in, the faster you can get yourself out of it. And then eventually you'll reach the point where, yes, of course, I have days where I'm like, oh, God, really? But I don't sink into that heavy insomniac anxiety, then just wanting to hide kind of state. And that's really what life is about, is trying to rise and do our own due diligence to strengthen and empower ourselves. So thank you for watching. I hope this gives you some great tips. If it does, share with me below. Have you struggled with chronic long-term depression? Or is it just little acute ones that, come and go? Or is it just seasonal? What is it that you struggle with the most? Share with me below or reach out privately. This is a difficult thing and I want to give you as much help as you can so that then you can turn around and help somebody else. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you subscribe, ring the bell, stay tuned for next week. I have no idea what I'm doing. I never do. I kind of wing it depending on what I see going on around me, which right now has been a lot of depression. So again, thank you. And remember, for the rest of this week, be authentic, be empowered, and own it completely. Bye.